Merry Christmas! So this is the Tuesday before Christmas. And look, I'm wearing my Make Christmas Golden Again shirt. I love, like, I don't have an ugly Christmas sweater. I have a Golden Girls Christmas shirt. Like, Trump, cage set match, all the things that mean I win, because this makes it where I win, right? So I know it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, so if you're here with me in the middle of all the chaos leading up to Christmas Day, thank you. If you're watching this on the flip side, couple days later, weeks later, it's fine. Still, thank you. Still Merry Christmas. Tomorrow's actually my son's birthday. Yeah, he has one of those Christmas birthdays. So I have double chaos. I have birthday and Christmas. But I'm still excited that you're here. No matter what, no matter when, you're here. So today's episode 4, making sure I changed that number. I did. Episode 4 is called Boundaries. What boundaries? And I had a lot of fear and trepidation try to creep in with this episode, just because there's so much information out there on boundaries. Matter of fact, yeah, see, one of the books from Cloud and Townsend, who originated the whole concept of let's talk about boundaries. Even though there's nothing new under the sun, nobody really creates anything out of thin air anymore. But there's so much out there about boundaries, and it's a hot topic. It's a buzzword anymore. Everybody wants to say, oh, I mean, sorry, I have boundaries. I have boundaries where that's concerned, or I have no boundaries, and we can tell. So I really had a little bit of fear about this one, but everything I'm going to talk about here is just either my experience of learning how to set healthy boundaries and learning how to use that gate. Sorry, my dog's coming up to say hi. Or it's just things I've learned throughout the years through Bible studies on boundaries, or all the sorts of things in between about boundaries. So I'm just kind of condensing what my understanding and my journey through boundaries is into just a couple of points here. This one may go a little bit longer than the 10 minutes, but that's okay. So first of all, I want to talk about what a boundary technically is and is not. So a lot of us have a tendency to think a boundary is I'm putting this fence up and you don't get to get in. Like, it's not happening. And that's a common misconception about boundaries, because what a boundary really is, sure, there's a fence, but there's a gate. That's where the real boundary comes into play. It's that line of, this is where or you stop and I begin, and vice versa. But that gate is under my control. That's for me to be able to go, you know what? I can let you in right now, or no, not right now. It's not happening. So it's not intended. A lot of times we misconstrue or misuse the term boundaries in that have a boundary. See you later. Don't call again. That's not what it's intended. Now, hear me. There are some situations where that gate never needs to open. There are absolutely situations where it never needs to open, and be okay with that. If you've worked through boundaries and you've had to put some up for a very specific reason, and it is a hard, I'm going to cement this, there's a reason. But in general, that's not what it's intended to be. So I think we all know probably an example that has passed in and out of our life. We may be in the middle of a relationship like that right now, where let me just kind of play out who that person is or what that relationship would look like. So I have someone come in who, oh my goodness, we have like instant connection. They begin to affirm everything in my life. They are encouraging everything that I do. They're so exceptional. They listen. Oh my goodness, we go deep quick. They start asking all the things about all my deepest, darkest secrets, which, like I talked about before, if you haven't watched episode 1, go watch it. I'm an open book, but everything goes deep so fast, and they think that there's a way to help fix me, right? And then all of a sudden, it's gone. Like it's no longer there. And you're like, what in the world just happened? Generally, There's probably always exceptions to this rule, but generally that is someone who struggles with setting up healthy boundaries. And so what I'm hoping we get to today in this quick talk is we cannot expect to set healthy boundaries with others until we learn to set healthy boundaries with ourselves. And I lived that life of kind of the gate just staying propped open because I learned boundaries at a very young age. I had to. As you learn more of the story, of my story, you'll see why. But I had to learn boundaries at a very young age. I didn't know that's what they were called. I didn't know that was the hashtag trigger word for it. But that's what I had to learn at an early age. And so here they come again. And so part of that was that I had them up, but I'd leave that gate prop just open just enough. And things and people and situations would slip in because I didn't have enough control to shut the gate and only open it when it was appropriate. So I want to hit on just a little bit. So when we talk about boundaries, a lot of times we struggle sometimes to see what they should look like. So I started thinking about what are some real world natural boundaries that we have to kind of help us get a frame of reference for where we should go personally. So I was thinking about the fact that driving. So you're behind a car and there's usually a natural gap that we keep. So some of us less than others, but this is a judgment-free zone. So listen, keep your judgment to yourself. I'm working on it, okay? Maybe not. Don't ask my kids. So, but there's a natural gap that we keep between us and the car in front of us, right? Because we inherently know the closer that we get, if anything were to go sideways, the opportunity for us to have a crash is more likely. So we allow for that natural gap, that natural boundary that's already there in place. So talking when you're eyeball to eyeball with somebody, generally speaking, everyone kind of knows that personal space gap that we leave there. And you know how you know it? Because when somebody starts invading it, what do? You step back a little bit and they come a little more. So we know that there is that natural boundary of that's in place around us. And kind of on the flip side of that, if I want to share something private with you, who we have this natural gap, this really good gap, but I want to share something private, what do? We lean in. So we already have those in place to kind of help us get a good visual for what it kind of could, would, should look like, right? So why can't we establish true healthy boundaries with ourselves? If we know what it looks like and we know how, in quote nature, if you want to call it that, it plays out well, why can't we do this for ourselves? So I think I've condensed my thoughts down into, I think there's 3 reasons that we struggle. We just struggle. The first is what's called FOMO. It's a new, really cool word. In my realm, it's called keeping up with the Joneses. So FOMO stands for fear of missing out. It is a hot topic buzzword today. Everybody, all the cool kids have a FOMO, a fear of missing out. And I think what that tends to head us into is when we don't want to miss out on the things, okay, we overschedule ourselves. And so then, because we're just so overscheduled, because, I got to go to this because I don't want to miss that. Oh, and she's going to be there. I really don't want to miss that either. Because we live in that, we are putting ourselves in a constant state of chaos, and we lack intentionality. So we don't have an opportunity to really give our best to the individual things that we know we really should. And so I think our first one is definitely falls under the FOMO. The second one is perfectionism. So we are talking to a recovering perfectionist here. I come from a long line of perfectionists, and it really wreaked havoc on the first stages and phases of my life. I think when I look at perfectionism, I tend to see it as choosing to gobble up the stress and sacrificing because I don't want to let people down. And because of that, I can't give my best to anything or anyone. The best example I can give is, because I'm in the South, I'm going to use sweet tea. So I have a big old glass of sweet. I don't know where you're watching from, but in the South we drink sweet tea and with ice in it. So just tossing that out there. I think I just got countryer as I said that. Anyway, so I have this big old glass of sweet tea. I have 50 people sitting in the room who are all thirsty, but 2 of those people are my children. So instead of giving to the 2 that matter most to me, and I don't want you to hear that, well, everybody needs it. I agree. I completely agree. But instead of giving to my 2 and quenching their thirst, I just give little bits to everybody and everyone still walks away thirsty. So perfectionism robs the ability to give my best to what I have right in front of me, of what I'm most entrusted with. What I've, a great friend of mine has used is my immediate circle of influence. You know, I can only affect what's right here, what's right here, what's right here. Now that circle of influence may move to what's here. I can affect what's right here, and eventually that ripple out effect happens, but I can't save the world, and I know that. So I think perfectionism robs us of that. I'm a recovering perfectionist. My kids would probably say that I still am, but I can look back at who I was, you know, as a child, into my teenage years, into my college years, early marriage, early motherhood. I've relaxed a lot. I've relaxed quite a bit, just because I've learned that phrase of, I am choosing to gobble stress at the expense of letting someone else down. And so I'm just not going to do that anymore. Well, I still do a little bit, but I'm working on it. Always a work in progress, right? So I think the third one, I think I've read it as all the things that I could think of that kind of fit into this category that someone labeled social conditioning. And so we have become a society that identifies ourselves as, you know, doing things for other people at the expense of our own sanity sometimes. And so at the end of the day, basically, we don't learn how to say no. And here's why. So especially, probably, I'm going to throw this kind of on us women for a minute, in that we have kind of been conditioned to be the nurturers, the one who are, not just with my kids, like my children are who I've been given to nurture and to grow, period, end of sentence. But we also have that innate desire a lot of times to try, and we just want to protect everyone else's emotions, and we want to make sure they're okay, which, please hear me not saying go out and just ravish everybody and just, you know, blow everyone down with your rudeness. That's not what I'm saying at all. But we've kind of taken it to an extreme. And so I think some of what I've seen called the third shift, we've got this third shift philosophy that I've got to be the one, I've got to get all these Christmas cards filled out and mailed before, you know, before the Christmas season, so everybody has it for their mantle. I've got to be the one to call and check on Aunt Susie. I mean, and don't hear me, please check on your grandmother, please check on your aunts. I'm not saying that, but we tend to take on more than we have to because it's just what's socially acceptable. And so I think it's just time for us to flip the script. It is time to flip the script. It is time for us to start saying, I've got to figure out a way. If any of this has resonated with us, it's time to flip the script, because you know what? We've got to break that. We've got to break that cycle. I've got to, that's where I knew I needed to be. I've got to get to a point where my kids begin to see that's what a healthy boundary looks like. Oh, okay. So how do I get there? How did I start making these strides to getting there? The first thing I did, and I'm going to encourage every one of you this week, if any of this has rung true with any of you, to sit down and really spend some time doing these 4 things. 1, where are my priorities? Like, what do I define as important? Not what does society define for me as important, not what do I think if I define this as important, everyone's going to be like, way to go, Billy. Like, no. What is important to me? Like, really sit and figure that out. Don't just give a canned response. Like, really sit down, dig in. What is important to me? If you're a believer, what is important to God? Let me meet him where he is. The talents and the abilities that he's given me, let me let those two collide and figure out what is important. Define what is important for ourselves. Then take a kind of a step back and say, okay, how does what I'm defining as important fit into the big picture? We all are in different walks and facets of life. How does me defining what is important to me, where does that fit in? How does that key fit into that hole? Figure that part out as well. And then, this one I cannot stress enough. Sleep on things. I think this is a practice that we in our microwave society have really stepped away from. I had a pastor tell me this, oh goodness, probably 18 years ago now, because my daughter's 18. Sleep on it. If whatever's in front of you, whether it's a relationship that you're kind of going, what in the world's going on, friendship, romantic, whatever, if it is, I mean, even the car buying process, like whatever situation you're in front of, if the time allows, sleep on it. And then if you wake up in the morning and it's still there and you still know it's what needs to be done, then work toward doing what we need to do to get there. Now, I've heard the flip side of that on the believer side of the table. I've heard the flip side of that say, well, if you're prayed up, you'll just know. Sometimes that is absolutely true, but more often than not, it is not. Just simply because I can be prayed up, but I still think there are moments and times that I, on the believer side of this house, still need to dig in with the Lord, or still need to do what needs to be done. I've seen it said where, you can't pray for God to move a mountain and not be shocked when he gives you a shovel. You still got work to do. It's not just all going to fall from the sky. Not negating that sometimes is not going to happen. But we've got to put in the work. We've got to do the things. And then I think the fourth thing is learn to say no. So if we really struggle with something like this, we need to be starting to stand in front of a mirror and go to ourselves, you know what? I would love to do that. But I have to say no. Not I'm sorry. Not, like no. And that is the best word we can put in our vocabulary. Not to be mean about it, but if we really struggle with boundaries, we just have to practice the art of no and feel the freedom and the weight lifted because we began to focus on what was important. Everything it can be something good, but everything out there isn't meant to come through our gate, and that's okay. That is okay. It rubs against the way our society is. It rubs against the way many of us have been raised. It rubs against this microwave mentality that we live in. But it's okay. It's okay. So, I encourage you to kind of start working through this process if you really struggle with it. I have very healthy boundaries set up in a lot of areas of my life, but there are areas I still struggle with. If you find yourself in that bucket, or you're thinking, what is this boundary you're talking about? Reach out to me. Let's talk. I would be glad to have some sort of conversation around this, because I think the more we can bust the stigma of saying yes to everything, the better off we're going to be as a society, and a lot less whiny. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is give ourselves permission. Just take a moment, take a breather to give ourselves permission to put our healthy self first. And that flies in the face of all of it. We're not used to putting ourselves first. But in this, if we can get this under our belt, everything else falls into a healthy pattern. And so I think it's so important for us to begin having these kind of open dialogue conversations and just flip that script, getting away from FOMO and perfectionism and what is socially acceptable to what is right for Billy. Like, where does my priorities lie? What is my bigger picture that I'm headed toward? Like, that's what matters. Healthy relationship and boundaries with Billy allows me to have healthy relationship and boundaries with you. and with her and with him. Like, it's there. So yeah, that's all I have for today. So I hope you guys all have a very Merry Christmas, and or whatever holiday you're celebrating right now in this season. Like and subscribe to be able to see what's next. I hope to see you next Tuesday, where can't believe I'm doing this at the end of the year. Next Tuesday's Tuesday Talk with Red is titled "She's Divorced," and that's literally how I wrote it. Because it is, it's going to be a sensitive and a very delicate topic to unpack. But this is a judgment-free zone. You know why? Because it's me and the camera. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great Christmas. I hope you celebrate with family and love on family in the most healthy way possible. And I will see you next Tuesday.